Hey guys, how's it going? Jordan Locke here. Republican Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina has decided to end his presidential campaign for 2024. Let's have a listen.
Without any question, Trey, one of the things I would recommend to every single American, I know it's not possible, by the way, if you ever want to love your country more, run for president. Traveling this country, meeting people has been one of the most fantastic experiences of my entire life. I love America more today than I did on May 22nd. But when I go back to Iowa, it will not be as a presidential candidate. I am suspending my campaign. I think the voters who are the most remarkable people on the planet have been really clear that they're telling me not now, Tim. I don't think they're saying, Trey, no, but I do think they're saying not now.
Okay guys, so there you have it. Tim Scott saying that he is suspending his presidential campaign for 2024. Now, he did say that he was suspending it and not ending it necessarily, but we all know what that means when a presidential candidate says that they're suspending their campaign. 99.9% of the time, that means that they're ending it. In fact, I can't think of a single time that a candidate said that they were suspending their campaign and then came back on the campaign trail. So essentially, this is Tim Scott saying that he is ending his campaign. So, I'm not sure if you've seen the recent polls for the Republican candidates. Trump is obviously polling on top by a wide margin. He's almost 60%. DeSantis is at 14%. Nikki Haley is at 8%. Vivek Ramaswamy is around 5%, as was Tim Scott. And Christie is under 4%. So I know a lot of you know who Tim Scott is, but I'm sure there are many of you who are wondering who Tim Scott actually is. I'm sure many of you have never even heard of Tim Scott before. And that's a completely valid point because Tim Scott is rarely ever covered in the media. You might ask why Tim Scott is not covered in the media, and the reason for that is for the same reason that Tim Scott never actually had a chance to win the Republican nomination. It's the same exact reason why Vivek Ramaswamy, despite being a very intelligent and articulate guy, doesn't have any chance in winning the nomination. It's the same exact reason why Ben Carson, the last election, never had a chance in winning the Republican nomination. This is the elephant in the room when it comes to discussing presidential candidates for the Republican Party. With the names that I just mentioned, I'm going to let you guess what the elephant in the room is when it comes to Republican presidential candidates. If you guessed that candidates who are non-white don't have any chance in winning the nomination, you are correct. And I think it's really funny when we see these Republican candidates show up who are non-white, who are at these debates acting like they have a chance to win this presidency. It's not only is it sad, but it's also delusional. It's delusional on the part of the candidates. It shows you how out of touch they are. And it's also sad because you know that the Republican electorate, despite clapping for these candidates when they're in these debates, would never ever truly elect this guy, either any of these guys, would never ever truly elect any of these guys to be presidential nominees. So I think this brings up a really interesting point within the Republican Party, right? Because they have these non-white candidates who are up there in the debates, in the national debates, who are debating with DeSantis and Christie and Haley as if they have any chance to win the nomination, when if they're sane, if there's any degree of sanity in their brains, which I do question because they're running on the Republican ticket, but if there is any sanity in their brains, they should know very well that they do not have a chance to win the Republican nomination. Republicans have always been a party of racism. And again, I'm not going to say it's every single Republican, but the vast majority of Republicans are all about superiority, racism, and xenophobia. It's why topics like building the wall between the U.S. and Mexico are such important talking points for Republicans. If these were Irish and Scottish immigrants coming over the border between Mexico and America, these Republicans wouldn't have a problem with it whatsoever. But because the immigrants who are coming over have darker skin, that's where the issue arises, right? So we know that the Republicans are a party of xenophobia. They're a party of racism. You won't find many that are brave enough to say what they think. Most of them are too cowardly to mention the fact that they have these racist tendencies and that's why they vote Republican. There are a few that are brave enough to say it, but most of them are not brave enough to mention this. But this is what the Republican Party is about. So I find it funny that people like Tim Scott and Vivek Ramaswamy run on these platforms and think that they actually have a chance to win the nomination. After all, a non-white president is the whole reason why we have the MAGA movement in the first place. Make no mistake about it, Obama being president was the genesis of the MAGA movement. The fact that a black guy or a half black guy could be president was the ultimate affront to the Republicans. And that's why the Republican Party, you guys remember it started with the Tea Party. That is the exact point that the Republican Party went from a bunch of moderates to far-right extremists and MAGAs. So the fact that these candidates can participate in these debates and can parade around like they have any legitimate chance at all of being the Republican nominee is not only very sad, but it also shows two things. The first thing it shows about those particular candidates is how checked out they are from reality, right? Everybody knows in their right mind that Tim Scott never had a chance to win the nomination. He seems like a really passionate guy, loves his country despite all the racism he's experienced in his country, and yet and still he never had a chance. And he never had a chance not because of his policies. This is a problem with the Republican Party. He didn't have a chance for nothing more than the color of his skin. Vivek Ramaswamy is an intelligent guy. I just spent about 2 hours listening to Vivek Ramaswamy debating people. Vivek Ramaswamy is one of the smartest, most intelligent, most articulate people that I have ever heard debate. This guy went to Harvard undergrad. He went to Yale Law School. He has started all types of pharmaceutical companies and ventures, and this guy is by all accounts a very successful man, smarter than 99% of Republican voters. This guy has no chance, despite all of those accolades, despite graduating from Ivy League schools, despite going to Harvard, despite going to Yale Law School, despite the fact that he started pharmaceutical companies and started ventures and is extremely intelligent, he still doesn't have a chance. And the problem with this is that he doesn't have a chance because of the color of his skin. If Vivek Ramaswamy's name was John Smith or David Miller and he was a white guy, things would be going very, very differently for him. So it shows you how out of touch that these people are, right? Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy. We can even go back to the last election with Ben Carson. Ben Carson was a neurosurgeon, smarter than 99% of the people who vote Republican. And even this guy, a neurosurgeon, did not have any chance to be the Republican nominee for president. So the second thing that I wanted to bring up that this shows about the Republican Party is not about the candidates, but about the voters, right? So when you see these candidates at these debates, you'll hear these people clapping in the crowd as if, whenever Tim Scott says something, as if they support him, or whenever Vivek Ramaswamy says something, they'll clap as if they truly support him and they might vote for him. But they all know that they're not going to vote for him. They know that he has no chance whatsoever. I just mentioned to you the percentages that these people are polling at. Trump is close to 60%. DeSantis is at 14%, and Ramaswamy and Scott are both around 5%, which is basically nothing. The only person polling any lower is Christie out of New Jersey. So I think that these people running shows the hypocrisy of the Republican voters, and it not only the hypocrisy, but it also shows the cowardice of the Republican voters, that they are not brave enough to just come out and say, hey guys, we would never vote for you because you're not white. That's what this Republican Party is about. That's why most of these people are voting Republican, right? Because there are too many brown people in the country and they are upset about the browning of America. So that's why someone as extreme, someone as racist as Donald Trump is carrying almost 60% so far. So I thought this was an interesting dichotomy to bring up. I don't know if Tim Scott actually thought that he ever had a chance. I don't think I hope he didn't think he had a chance. If he's half as smart as he seems. I really hope he doesn't. Vivek Ramaswamy, I can't imagine that this guy is not intelligent enough to realize that he truly does not have a chance. The Republican Party is not a colorblind party. The Republican Party is all about colors, which is why someone like Donald Trump is polling so high. The Democratic Party is a colorblind party, which is why we were able to elect someone like Obama. Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott, Ben Carson, all these people are seriously misled if they think that Republicans are open-minded enough to consider a candidate who is non-white. It's a very sad situation, unfortunately, but this is the situation that we're in, and this is why we have to do everything we can to make sure that Donald Trump does not get into office. This is why we have to do everything we can to make sure that this MAGA ideology dies when Donald Trump's election bid dies for 2024. It's a very toxic mentality to have. It's a very toxic ideology, and we have to make sure that this ends and that any party, any political party in this country, it won't matter what the color of your skin is, if you run for presidential nominee, that you'll be able to stand on your ideas and your opinions and your platform rather than something as surface level as the color of your skin. Thanks for listening, guys, and I will see you soon. Take it easy.